Yo, welcome to another episode of Zero Effort Review. And today, I've got a rather special one. This is I'm going to be reviewing a whole film series, a series that's pretty close to my heart. And hey, check it out, it's just in time for Halloween, so it's very fitting. Today, I'm going to be talking about everyone's favorite homicidal voodoo serial killer doll, Chucky. Now, like a lot of kids around, well, a lot of people around my age when I was a kid, I Chucky used to scare the poop out of me. The whole concept of the killer doll freaks me out. But for whatever reason, Chucky just stuck. I don't know why. You know, maybe it's just the fact that it's a combination of scary plus he kind of has sort of the wise assness, for lack of a better term, of say a Freddy Krueger. So he had personality. It wasn't like some big lumbering mindless nothing like Jason or Michael Myers. You know, I'll leave it to you to discern whether I'm talking about the Halloween character or the comedian. But um, but for a reason, Chucky stuck with me. And has stuck with me for years. I've watched the films series many times over. I do tend to watch it pretty much around Halloween, every Halloween, if not more than once per year. You know, it's just a it's a the films are just really good. Like they're good afternoon uh killers. You watch each one's only like an hour and a half long, yet you know they're all pretty well paced. So you're not thinking like it's kind of like yeah, it's an hour and a half, but it feels longer in a good way. It's like, oh wait, it's over. Okay, you know, for the most part, they don't really drag on. You're thinking like, I wonder how long much longer this has. Oh my god, it's only 40 minutes in. Jesus, it's more like, wait, it's already 40 minutes in. Damn, so they have really good pacing. Another thing that a very good friend of mine actually mentioned is that I didn't notice it until I was, watching them after he said it, was they all have really good cinematography, all things considered. You with one exception, which I'll talk about when I get to it. Well, two exceptions, but I'll talk about them when I get to them, I guess. But yeah, they're all pretty well shot films. I mean, every, everything's where it looks like where it should be. There's no weird angles. Like if they are, they're supposed to be weird. It's not one that's like, why did they pick that angle? It's like, no, everything's shot like the like the way it should be, if you will. So I guess I'll start off from the beginning. With the original Child's Play. From 1988. What was it was in there. No, it was 88. Yeah, because Child's Play 2 came out in 90, then Child's Play 3 came out like 91. That's right. Anyways, um, so obviously the film starts off. This is one of those weird things. The film starts off, I mean, right off the bat, with Charles Lee Ray, the man whose soul would go into the doll and he would become Chucky. It starts off with him on the run from the law. Okay, that's a pretty cool way to show it off, and shows him getting cornered in a toy store, trying to find a body to transfer a soul into, and he tumbles and happens to look at the good a good guy doll and goes, well, that's a body, and there's no soul to dominate over, just an empty vessel. So so he says, the infamous chant that is, depending on who you ask, plagued the series the whole way through. Ade Dewey Dambala. Give me the power I beg of you. All that fun stuff. Uh, on the commentaries for some of the films, the writer of the series, Don Mancini, who, by the way, has been the writer for the entire series, just like David Krishner has been the producer for the whole entire series. Trust me, if you look up David Krishner, he's done a lot of other stuff, a lot of stuff that you wouldn't think, you know, but either you wouldn't think the producer of the Chucky films would be into this stuff, or vice versa. You go like, wait, that guy has produced all this other stuff, and he produces the Chucky movies? Okay. Kind of helps that he helped design and create the Chucky doll, so, it's kind of a near and dear thing to his heart. Anyways, so, so it starts off like that, and then, it shows, our main protagonist for the Child's Play trilogy. That's the thing with the Chucky movies. There's 6 of them, and it's kind of split into 2 trilogies. There's the Child's Play trilogy, which is basically Chucky versus Chucky Barkley. And then there's the Chucky series, which kind of delves more into, Chucky. You kind of gives Chucky's character more depth. It's really interesting, actually. So it's one of those weird things where, you show the family that's gonna get, basically destroyed by Chucky's presence. And the way they set it up, they try to make it look like, that maybe Andy's just crazy, and he might actually be, the one who's starting doing these murders and all this bad stuff, and Chucky just might be, a figment of his imagination. But the scene that started the movie kind of throws that out of whack. As an audience member, that even if you haven't seen these movies and somehow have not heard of Chucky, you just kind of go, oh, so I bet you that guy's, like, essence, the soul, is in the doll, right? So the kid's telling the truth and no one believes him. So it's one of those things where it's like, if they really wanted to go that angle, they shouldn't have bothered with the police scene at the beginning. Or at least not shown the, what happened inside the toy store, like, directly. At least not right then. Like, show it later in, like, a flashback or something. So, like I said, or as I was saying, rather. So, I mean, that's the only real big gripe about the first film that I have. Otherwise, I mean, it's pretty cool. First off, just the puppetry on display, the technical wizardry. There's a lot of parts, though, parts where Chucky shot from a wide angle or from far away, where it's very, very obvious that it's a small person in a Chucky outfit and a Chucky getup. So that way they can show Chucky walking and stuff. There's one particular instance where they show him walking up a stairwell, and all you see is his shadow through the stairs. It's like one of those one of those metal girder type stairwells, and so you see his shadow, and his head looks huge. Like, I don't know if it's just the way it's shot, like, the light, the way the light's angled at him or something, at the small person in the costume, but his head looks giant. It's really weird. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun little, thriller slash horror flick. It really does side more on the thriller side of things, because, there is sort of a mystery-ish thing, even not so much, the question of, is Andy the killer, or is his doll really alive? But more of the mystery of, who is Charles Ray and how did he do this and all that. So there is a bit of that, you know. Um, and how do they stop him and all that jazz. One thing that started in this film, and some people go, well, wait a second, is in this film, they the person that taught Chucky voodoo, with his last breath, tells Andy's mom and Mike the cop. I can't remember Andy's mom's name, but I can remember Mike the cop. Maybe because my name is Mike, I don't know. But he tells them that the only way to kill him is shoot through the heart. Whereas in the other Chucky films, when he gets killed, he doesn't get shot just through the heart. He gets destroyed in other ways. So it's like, well, wait a second, he's supposed to be shot through the heart, right? It's like, well, first off, some of the other ways he gets killed off, it's kind of like, I think his heart probably got hit in there. But also, it's the fact that at that moment in time, that's the only part of him that was really human, so that's the only way you could kill him. In the other films, by the time they get that far, he's more human, so there's more of him to hurt. So that explains that for you. For all of you people that were freaking out over that, I guess. All 5 of you. So, yeah, I mean, the first film's really, really great. Good, like the good puppetry. All the actors are doing a bang up job. Especially Alex Vincent. Normally I'm like most people. Child actors aren't exactly the best, but he was pretty good, all things considered. I mean, again, this is like a 5-year-old or so, maybe. In a horror flick. And he's opposite, an animatronic killer doll. A lot of the time. So, yeah, I mean, you can't, he's pretty good, all things considered. Ooh, pardon me. So, anyways, moving on to the second film, a little behind the scenes story for you. At this time, MGM was, and they still are the owners of the original Child's Play film, the first one. But MGM was on hard times in the late 80s, really hard times. Like, they were gonna go bankrupt and not exist anymore. So they kind of had a big sale of all their a lot of their stuff. A lot of it went to Ted Turner. He bought out a lot of their classic film catalog and their cartoons and stuff like that. That's why if you watch, say, Gone with the Wind or Wizard of Oz now, you see, it's distributed by Warner Brothers, but you still see the MGM logo. I mean, they kept the MGM logo. And then there's other films where they hold the rights to them, but for home video purposes, because again, MGM is still not all that great. I mean, they're pretty hard up on cash these days for such a legendary studio. But stuff like, say, Child's Play or RoboCop, that's why you see the Fox logo on there, because for those films, Fox does distribution for them. So, but one of the things that they did during this time, back in the late 80s, when they were selling the rights away for a lot of their stuff, is they sold off the sequel rights for Child's Play, for Chucky. And Universal snagged it up, and Universal has owned it ever since. They made a special arrangement for the Chucky box set that came out about 2 years ago when Curse of Chucky came out. So that's why Child's Play 1 is in there. It's still owned by MGM, but they did a special deal, I guess. That way they can include that film with the collection, which is really, really sweet, because They had released box sets prior to that on DVD that had, you know, Child's Play 2, 3, Bride of Chucky, and Seed of Chucky, but you had to buy Child's Play 1 separately because it was owned by a different studio. But it's really cool that they did that, you know, so you can get all of them in one set. It's really cool. I think it's pretty cool. Anyways, that's a little background story behind Child's Play 2. So Child's Play 2 picks up, you know, more or less where the last one left off. It's a couple years later, and you know, Andy's in foster care. His mom, Nancy, that's her name. His mom's in, you know, mental institution, you know, getting, you know, mental aid because everyone thinks she's crazy, rightly so, honestly, because, you know, who's gonna believe such an insane story? And, you know, the company that makes the good guy dolls is under scrutiny because the story of this has gotten out a little. They've tried to keep it wraps, and this is kind of where this is one of the fun things about the Child's Play movies. They are every film in the series for the most part is very much of its era, and with Child's Play 2 and 3, they are very much of, you know, corporation trying to screw you over, you know, vibe. You know, that was seen in stuff like RoboCop and Aliens and, you know, Terminator to an extent, etc., etc. You know, it was rampant. You know, you saw a bunch of movies that did that. Some, you know, some obviously better than others, and some it was a bigger deal, and it was still there on a lot of movies in some way. And same thing here. So somehow this company has procured the Chucky doll and has it. It's not in police lockup as evidence where it should be. Which again, you know, it's like, yeah, it's corporation, of course they could pull that off. You know, so that's just sort of a big hand wave. So, you know, they clean up the, clean off all the gunk, you know, off of his Chucky's charred carcass. You know, clean him up, give him a new body, and Chucky's back, Jack, as the box said. You know, as the poster said back at the time of the film's release. Look out, Jack! Chucky's back. You know, and once again he, you know, goes on the hunt for Andy to, take over his soul and his body. And this is one of my favorite ones. I'm gonna say right now, the even numbered Chucky movies are my favorite ones. You know, just for whatever reason. You know, with 2, I will admit there's a whole lot of nostalgic reasons because I used to watch it like all the time when it was on USA and Sci-Fi because USA and Sci-Fi are owned by Universal, so you know they run a lot of their programming. But USA and especially Sci-Fi, you know, used to run those films all the time back in the, you know, mid and late 90s. You know, they'd run them all the time, but especially around Halloween. They'd be on like all month, like constantly. Like there probably wasn't a weekend that went by that, you know, Child's Play 2 and 3 weren't playing on Sci-Fi, you know, at one point or another. You know, in October. So yeah, it was you know, so like I said, I have a lot of nostalgia for it. But that said, it's still a really well done film. I mean, it's got good shadows. Again, this is going back to the cinematography. Good shadows, good colors. It's a very colorful film, actually. Like, it's very bright. Which is kind of, you know, a great juxtaposition. You know, it's a very colorful film, but it's also very violent. There's also some really great one-liners in this one. I caught this way back when I still am convinced that this line is a call out of sorts. There's no commentary on the Blu-ray or DVD for Child's Play 2 or 3, so who knows? He has to ask Don Mancini at a panel about this, but there's a scene where Chucky's, Chucky's busted up another good guy doll that's in Andy's new foster home, and he's trying to take its place, and can't take there can't be two good guy dolls, otherwise someone's gonna be like, hey, what's up? So he busts it up and goes and buries it in the backyard, and he's burying it, and he's kind of laughing, and he goes, and as he plops it down, he goes, "Eat dirt, Tommy," because that's what the name of that good guy doll was Tommy. And I can't help but think this is somehow a Rugrats call out. Like, I just can't help but go, this has to be a Rugrats call out. It can't not be. If it isn't, it's a crazy coincidence then. I mean, come on. Both the Chuckies are short, small, and red haired. Like I said, I am convinced to call out. But, pardon me. But, that said, the puppetry in this film is even better than the first. I'm flabbergasted by how good the puppetry is in Child's Play 2. I mean, there's almost no point in the film where, you have a small person in a suit. I'm not saying that I don't like small people in suits or anything. That's fine. You sometimes have to do that to pull off certain shots. That said, when you don't have that in your film, and Chucky's always a puppet, it keeps from breaking the illusion more. The illusion is not broken as nearly as much. When the character is consistently one type of, it's always somebody in a costume, or it's always somebody, or it's always a puppet. It's not as like jarring. It's not. Yeah. It's consistent. Is what I'm trying to get at. So I like the fact that it's a puppet the whole time. But just some of the emotions that Chucky can pull off in this film. Even though most of the time, the only thing you see him doing is being either, malicious looking or sneering or stuff like that. Very menacing faces. Still, the emotional capacity that he has in this film is amazing. All things considered, it's really great. You'd swear it was, I'm going to say it. You'd swear it was a Henson work. I'm not even kidding. And maybe they had some puppeteer from Henson working on it. I don't know, but it's just really outstanding puppetry. Alex Vincent is even better than he was in the first. He's got some time on his hands now to, get his stuff together. He's a little older, a little wiser. I like the fact that even though unlike the first one where he was sort of like a damsel in distress situation, because he was just looking, I think that there are quite a few moments in this film where Andy starts becoming an actual hero. There's a lot of points where he's still at the mercy of Chucky, but overall, he's starting to grow. He's starting to become more he's starting to figure out that this is my battle. No one's gonna help me. I have to do this on my own. So I think that's kind of cool that he's starting to figure that stuff out. Sucks that because that's things like that, but it's kind of interesting. The other thing that's really weird about this film is that it kind of went a little over the top. Well, it's very over the top, but it went a little over the top with the ending, because Chucky kind of gets a real unstoppable killing machine live in this one. The rest of the films, not so much, but in this one, it's just like, he won't freaking die. I mean, let's see. Gets his gets gets his right hand torn off by himself, and then proceeds to stick a knife in his arm to replace his hand and duct tape it on. Because he's he's a very improvisational killer. Let's see. Then he gets his lower torso, the lower half of his body torn off, and yet somehow he's still alive and hasn't just been killed from blood loss. And let's see. Then he gets Then he gets scalded by hot rubber or plastic or whatever, and finally gets his head blown off. So yeah, they didn't go nearly as over top like that ever again in the series. So thank God. But it's just like, God, he just won't die. But at the same time, it's kind of fun just cause. Also, this is kind of in the first film, but in the second it really comes to a head in the second film that the Chucky films have really depressing endings. Because, well, like the first one, they killed the doll, but as Mike's cop friend says, Mike goes, after they kill him, he goes, "Believe me now," and then his friend goes, "Yeah, who's gonna believe me?" Well, as the second film demonstrates, no one. The cops stayed quiet about it. The company got their way. Andy's mom is in an institution. Andy's in foster care. At the end of this film, yeah, Chucky's defeated, but Andy and his foster sister, for lack of a better term, are homeless, and who knows what's going to happen to them. Which brings us to the third film, Child's Play 3. I don't really like Child's Play 3. My reason for not liking Child's Play 3 is it feels lazy. It feels very phoned in. You can tell, like, the second one, they really tried to, force some real effort. They go, okay, the first one was really cool, now we got a bigger budget, so let's go really crazy. The third film just didn't feel right. It felt, again, just lazy. Couple years forward. It's been about 4 or 6 years or so. No, it's been 6 years since the last film. And he's 16 now. He's at a military academy. Meanwhile, the company that makes Good Guys is thinking about getting their stuff back together after, covering up everything that happened at the factory, and all that. But they went and go forward with it, and guess who gets resurrected and is the first new good guy off the assembly line. Other thing is that, from a visual standpoint, Chucky is very just menacing the whole time in this film. I mean, I grant he's a horror film villain, so I mean, he's not Mr. Nice Guy most of the time, anyways. I mean, he's just a jerk the whole film. I mean, there's not much time. There's not much time for levity in the third film. I think that's a big issue. It's very self-serious. Especially, like, this is when they started really introducing guns into the series and stuff, and just I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite right to me. Um, we also found out that Chucky's down with being getting any body he can transfer a soul to, especially if it happens to be a black person. Chucky's down for being a bro, as he says. Actually, I believe the quote goes, "Yeah, Chucky's gonna be a bro," something like that. So, you know, basically Chucky finds a new target. He's done with Andy. He's just gonna kill Andy off so that way no one else can suspect him. Um, and this was the big finale for Child's Play and Chucky for a while. At the end of the film, Chucky gets thrown off a mountain of skulls. I will admit the finale is really great. Like as vanilla as the rest of the film is, the finale is pretty great. You have Chucky almost getting control of this new kid's body. Andy finally, really stepping up and, putting, Chucky behind him for good. And the music really sets the mood well and all that. Also, I should note that the music in Child's Play 2 was great, and they brought him back for Curse of Chucky, if I recall, according to the commentary. But yeah, the music was really, really good in that. Had sort of a circus vibe. It was really sweet. But Child's Play 3, like I said, it was the end of the series for a while. And like the last film, like the previous two films, film ends, Chucky's feet finally once and for all. He's done with. He's been shredded by a freaking fan. He's done. It's over. There's not really any way to resurrect him. But Andy gets arrested and gets sent to jail. So dour ending a bit. Flash forward to about, what was it, 97, 98. And, Chucky's been gone for a while, man. Like that, Child's Play 3 came out like in 1991. So it's been about 7 years since the last film. And so Universal decided to resurrect the franchise a bit, and we got Bride of Chucky. Now, as I mentioned before, pardon me, the Child's Play franchise has adapted itself well to what's going on in horror at the time. So, it started off as a slasher series, much in the same vein as, Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers and all that. So, it fit in with the 80s crowd. And, most of those series went into the early 90s or so with that same attitude, even though it started to waver a bit, as did Child's Play. By the mid to late 90s, though, not mostly, pretty much all credit of this goes to Wes Craven's Scream. Horror become meta. Everyone that was into horror kind of knew all the little story points of what horror movies do. All the different character types and all that. So horror films, starting with Scream, started becoming more, like I said, very meta context. Characters were more aware of what type of film they were in. It wasn't just like there weren't so many characters going, doing stupid horror movie stuff that people used to usually make fun of. Don't go upstairs, stupid. That you're gonna be trapped up there. Characters would be more aware that that's something they shouldn't do. they'd seen horror movies before, and Bride of Chucky is no different. The other thing that, much like its other, horror film contemporaries, is that it started becoming more comedic. It didn't lose its, it didn't lose its edge as a horror film per se, but it definitely had more. It definitely made more room for humor for jokes. Um, because again, it's very meta contextual, so it kind of pokes fun at its own genre. So the film starts off with uh, a policeman going to an evidence locker room, and you search through it, and you see a couple of iconic, you know, uh, items from other horror films, most of which aren't even owned by Universal, but they got away with it anyway. See a hockey mask representing Jason, a bladed glove representing Freddy, Michael Myers mask, Leatherface's chainsaw, and other stuff like that. And then cop grabs his bag, looks inside it. We see a POV camera shot from inside the bag, and he's kind of okay, whatever. And he's driving along, calls somebody. It's a woman on the other end, telling her he's got the goods and he's expecting to get his money. And when he gets there, the woman kills him. And she opens the bag, looks inside, and there's the torn up remains of Chucky from the end of Child's Play 3. And using some voodoo shilling from Voodoo for Dummies, again, meta context and more comedy. She brings back Chucky once again. And again, this is where we start off the Chucky series, where the Chucky trilogy, where we get to know Chucky more as a character and not just some serial killer psychopath. I mean, he still is a serial killer psychopath, but we get to know more as well a person per se. He's still deranged, he's still crazy, he's still evil, pretty much, but we get to learn more about who he is and what he does when he's not killing people. If you will. And, well, he had a girlfriend, which, and she's played by Jennifer Tilly. And honestly, it's honestly a career-defining role. I wager that it's probably the one role that most people know her for. I know that's the way it is for me. So I might just be putting what I know and saying that it's the same for other people. Well, I know other people might know her from other films. But this is where I know her from. Again, I would imagine most people, well, not most people, but a lot of people know her mostly from the Chucky trilogy. Pardon me. So, obviously, as the title implies, obviously she's gonna get her soul transferred into a doll, and they show it in the trailers. I'm not spoiling nothing. And of course now they gotta go on a road trip to, find the Heart of Damballa amulet, which is buried with Chucky's old body, in Jersey. So yeah, it's a road trip horror comedy film. It's so late '90s it hurts. I'm not. It really is. The movie has some just killer lines. You know, there's a great uh, there's a great little set of jokes revolving around Martha Stewart. You know, which are pretty great. You know, as Martha Stewart always says, when guests come by unexpectedly, you have to improvise. Who the fuck is Martha Stewart? My idol. You know. Uh, Again, it's just a lot of pretty great lines, which I dare not spoil except for the one I just mentioned. Um, God, I'm sorry. So yeah, it's pretty great flick. The film, this is probably the best looking of the series. Not even joking. The whole, Bride of Chucky looks freaking amazing. It's super well shot. The director, Ronnie Yu, actually would go on to direct Freddy vs. Jason. And if you look at the two films, they're shot very similarly, but they both look great. You know, really great shadows, but not so much that, colors completely saturated out and everything's very muted. You know, nah. He's, everything that, if something's colorful, it looks really colorful. But when it's dark out, there's lots of really great shadows and stuff like that. But another thing that needs to be noted, oh my god, the puppet work. Easily the best in the series. Not even kidding. It's some of the best puppetry you're probably gonna find in film. Honestly, like seriously, some of the stuff puts the puppetry on work here puts some of Jim Henson's work to shame. I'm not even kidding. It's really good. I mean, you know, whereas the puppetry in Child's Play 2 had emotional capability, but was never used. There's the Chucky and Tiffany dolls show a lot of different emotions. You know, they're happy, they're sad, they're introspective. You know, just again, I mean, there's a scene where uh, Chucky and Tiffany as dolls are talking about the varying choices that they've made or shouldn't have, or have made in with their lives. And there's a point where literally like Chucky's kind of just looking down like he's depressed and introspective. I mean, first off, when do you see this happen to a horror movie villain? You never see this happen to a horror movie villain. Usually they're just cocksure of themselves and just they're they're mustache twirling villains. Muhahaha, I'm going to get you. Muhahaha. It's so different to see a film be really introspective about the villain, but not expect like you're supposed to care about the villain, but at the same time you're not supposed to, and the film never makes it, tells you you're supposed to like this guy even though he's a sociopath, not directly, I mean, but at the same time it does because it gives you these these scenes like this of introspection. It's so different. But yeah, the puppetry on display in this film is fantastic, just fan friggin' tastic. Pardon me. Brain burning. But yeah, like the it's very well shot. Puppetry on display is great. The cast is really good. We have a very young Katherine Heigl, as the female, well, one of the female leads. The female lead is Chili. And then you have was it the late great John Ritter as a very controlling, as Katherine Heigl's very controlling stepfather. of a police chief. You know, so I mean, it's so you have a pretty decent cast. Well, not decent, pretty good cast actually. Um, ah, brain farting. I'm so sorry. Uh, it's just a really great flick. You know, oh, it balances horror and comedy just right. You know, I dare say, and some people might call this heresy, but I dare say, in terms of balancing between two genres, you know, I dare say that this is probably one of the best balancing acts between two genres that I've seen in a film this side of Ghostbusters. You know, whereas Ghostbusters balanced action and comedy with a little horror. You know, well, sci-fi and comedy, I guess. You know, this film just has a really great job of balancing the horror and the comedy. You know, because it's predominantly a comedy, I'll admit, in terms of like the ratio, but the whole film's shot like a horror film. You know, the entire aesthetic is horror every step of the way. You know, so it helps balance, rebalance the film. So, anyways, getting back to depressing endings. This one actually kind of breaks the mold a little bit. It's not as depressing as some of the other films in the series. Because at the end of the film, Chucky and Chucky and Tiffany are both, dead. The kids that they were gonna possess, supposedly had their names cleared, but the only detective that knew about it, he gets killed off by the seed of Chucky. So they're probably still on the run, because of the unsolved murder cases. And speaking of the seed of Chucky, that of course great segue into the next film, Seed of Chucky. I hate this film. Okay, that's too strong. I don't hate this film, but it's easily my least favorite of the Chucky movies by a long stretch. And the thing is, it's not that it's it went from horror comedy to just comedy. It's that the comedy isn't all that good. There's a couple of good ones, and it's perfectly watchable. Like I said, that's why I can't say it sucks, because I can watch it perfectly fine. But between the six films, it's my least favorite. I don't care for it that much. Because again, what few jokes that I do like in it, a lot of them just really fell flat. The other reason I don't really care for the film is that after you watch Bride of Chucky, you see some really amazing puppetry, and then you go to Seed, and you see some just not even remotely as good puppetry. And it's distracting because you go, well, why don't you just use the same the same puppets and the same techniques from Bride and just use them in Seed? I know it's been a few years between films, but come on. So it's just not so great comedy, and what I consider a pretty large dip in production quality that really makes Seed not just really bad. That said, Jennifer Tilly, as both herself and Tiffany, the voice of the Tiffany doll, is fucking great. She's really, really good. I mean, first off, it's always great to see any, actor or actress willing to poke fun at themselves, and man, she skewers herself hard in this film. I mean, or rather, the writer does, but the fact that she's willing to play along with it is pretty great. Like I say, you don't see that all the time. It's very humble. It makes the actors look really humble when they do stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, just the production value overall, and the lack of decent comedy just makes for a not very good film. I mean, it's kind of why I'm not really talking too much about it, because that's really not much to talk about. I mean, was it The Seed? Glenn, or is it Glenda? You know, uh, Billy Boyd does a pretty okay job. He's not terrible, he's not great, he's serviceable. Um, he's okay. The ending also isn't really all that depressing. It's honestly it's just sort of like a lazy jump scare ending, really. Um, and well, I mean, again, kind of going with horror at the time, horror circa mid 2000s when See the Chucky came out, mid late 2000s. Yeah, horror was kind of lazy like that. Every so often you get a good one, but in general, horror was pretty lazy like that. So yeah, like I said, it's just yeah, don't care for Seed. Not a favorite of mine. Which leads us to the final film in the series, which of course is The Curse of Chucky from just a couple years ago, 2013. And oh man, return to form. They completely dump the concept of comedy. Really, I mean, there's a couple of okay lines, but in general, the concept of comedy in this film is just completely gone. You know, uh, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a couple of there's like one or two wisecracks that Chucky gives off when he is kill somebody or whatever. But again, like I said, overall, it's you know it's just a straight horror flick, and that return to form, just going back to the well, if you will, to where what the film series started as. It's just a straight horror flick. First off, it's just really refreshing because you don't see a whole at the well 2 years ago at least you didn't see a whole lot of horror, just straight horror films. The concept of making just a straight horror film, you can get by with just making doing a couple of victims in a house with a killer and make a suspenseful film, or a ghost or demon, whatever. Point is, that type of film is really making or has made a comeback. And again, much like the rest of the series, Chucky kind of falls in line with what the trend in horror is at the time, and the trend is go back and do just good solid horror. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just drive real good. You don't need to make a new car. You just need to be able to drive the current one really well. And Curse of Chucky drives real well, really well. I mean, here's a film that was made direct to video on a budget of $5 million. And first off, the cinematography is freaking crazy good for that money. Like, holy crap, this film looks great. Like, again, I'm with a lot of other people on this. Between the cinematography and the production values, especially with the puppetry, why Universal didn't release this in theaters 2 years ago is beyond me. This was a theatrical quality release that somehow got dumped on the home video, and it's a hidden gem. Except for horror fans and people like me who are giant Chucky fans. But again, just as a horror film and all that, it's great. It's so good. I mean, and the cool part is that because of the story, which I don't want to spoil too much. I mean, this is it's still only a couple years old, so I think the statute of limitations is still up on spoilers for this one. Don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say there's a reason why Chucky isn't cracking wise so much in story, which is really great. I love that it's not just this abrupt change to his character. There's a reason why he's not the wisecracking asshole that he normally is. You know, he's back to being a more malicious character. Very very stern in a lot of ways. Oh, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's still an asshole and he'll still crack wise, but again, because of story reasons, he's not as willing to crack wise, if you will. But yeah, like I said, because, I give the film a lot of props because I said for what it was made for, it looks, it looks like they got every single penny of that money, if not more. I've seen films that have far far higher budgets than this film that look far far worse. And aren't and not only look worse, but just are worse in general. Like just bad script, bad acting, bad everything. And this film just knocks it out of the park. Just such a good flick. I mean, I'm really torn between it, Bride, and two. Probably not two. Because again, a lot of that is nostalgia. But I'm really torn between Curse and Bride as to which one is not only my favorite, but just the best in the series. If I'm really thinking that I'd probably say I like Bride more, but objectively, Curse is the better film. Because like Bride's more entertaining, but Curse is just so well made, and I can watch Curse, just as often, but yeah, I'd probably say Bride's more entertaining. I enjoy watching that more often, but I'll give Curse kudos for being probably the best film in the series, even better than the first. But yeah, real return to form. There's a lot of really interesting shots in the film. There's one, minor spoiler. There's a scene where Chucky's poisoned one bowl of chili that the whole cast of the film, outside of Chucky, of course, is eating for dinner. And the way they set it up, they show each plate being put on the on the table, but they don't show they don't show the tray. It's like like bowl cut, bowl on the table cut, bowl on the table cut, and then it shows this shot from above the table, and it's sort of coming down and sort of circling, sort of just to disorient the audience more, so that way they really don't know which bowl is poisoned. So the tension in that scene, because the audience has no idea who has the poisoned chili bowl, is really great. It's just again, I admire this film so much because of how good it is, on the budget it was made on. I mean, I appreciate a good film regardless of what budget it's made on. But if it's made on the cheap like this one was, I mean, $5 million is cheap in by studio standards. So I mean, again, like I said, I released a directed video for a reason. But like I said, for a studio film that cost $5 million, it's again, it's a theatrical quality release. It's great. There's also a lot of really great fan service in this film. For longtime fans. I mean, the series is over 25 years old at this point. It's almost gonna be 30 here soon. It's just a phenomenal flick. So yeah, that's my entire, feelings on the Child's Play series. It took me an entire hour to talk about all the entire series. So this is gonna be a long watch. Well, if you get this point, you obviously knew that already. But yeah, I won't be doing these type of reviews that often because they're just too long. But yeah, that's how I feel about the Child's Play movies, the Chucky movies, and all that. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you on the flip side with another, zero effort review. Later, taters.